Welcome to Change Happen, Then What? Where each week in Season 1 of the Friendship Chronicles, I share real-life stories from incredible people I've met over the past 20 plus years. Stories of change, challenge, and what comes next. These are the moments that shaped them, the pivots that led to purpose, and the raw emotions in between. My hope is that these conversations inspire you, offer hope, and in the end, leave you with a smile. So wherever you are, take a deep breath and let's dive in, because change happens, and that's where the story really begins. I'm your host, Heather Holt, and I'm so happy to have you here today. Hey there, and welcome back to Change Happen, Then What? You may have noticed that today's episode is twice as long as most of my episodes, and there's a good reason for that. When I first reached out to Tim and Candy, I honestly thought I'd be telling their story in two parts. I expected to share the journey of a wife who became the caretaker for her husband currently battling cancer, and a comedian's take on how to survive the unthinkable. And truthfully, I think that's the story they thought they were going to share too. But what I found instead was something messier, funnier, and more heartbreaking, and way more real than I could have ever imagined. Yes, cancer is part of their story. So is caregiving, hospitals, exhaustion, and trauma. But that's not their whole story. Not even close. What I heard was a love story, one that's possibly spanned lifetimes. But in this lifetime, Tim and Candy didn't sign up to be June and Ward Cleaver. They didn't even choose to be the Brady Bunch, though between them they could give the Partridge family a serious run for their money. No, they chose something different. A love that shows up in hospital rooms with Tim's humor and Candy's fierceness, and in quiet mornings when they're just trying to hold it all together. And somehow, through all of it, they're still laughing, still showing up, still choosing each other. So yes, this episode is longer than most, but this is how their love story needed to be told. So grab your gloves, maybe a tissue, and scrub in. Because real love, in their case, gets a little shitty sometimes. And that's exactly why this shit show is worth listening to.
It was April going into May of 2016.
Tim was having his 50th birthday. I took him to Costa Rica for his birthday.
That we had gone to Costa Rica for a vacation, and I knew that when I got back, the day after we returned from Costa Rica, I had my first colonoscopy scheduled.
And when we're flying home, he tells me he has a colonoscopy the next day. Like, we're flying in, and the next morning, you have a colonoscopy. Okay, sounds good. And he's like, yeah, it's my 50th birthday present. Like, that's what you do when you turn 50. You get a colonoscopy, you know?
Because I had just turned 50 in April. We got back and I do the prep for it, and we go into the procedure.
I really thought I was going to drop him off. He was going to have a colonoscopy. I'm like, it's so routine. I'm like, when you're in there, I'm going to go meet some clients because we've been away for a couple of weeks. And I said, and then just give me a ring and I'll come pick you up.
I remember a number of different things. I remember being on the table. I remember looking up at the monitor. I remember them starting, and then as soon as they started, they knocked me out. And then I came to a little bit later, and I saw on the monitor where they were actually taking samples from inside of me. And I thought, I thought, oh, well, that's different. like I had no feeling about it. I had no idea why. Like I was just like, oh, isn't that interesting that there's a little arm in there that's a mechanical arm that's pinching off pieces on my skin. And so the procedure finishes and I wake up in recovery and there's a nurse there, and ironically the nurse I used to work with years ago at another job, we're talking and I could see by the look on her face. You know, the surgeon was there and they told me, and she's holding my hand, and I looked at the surgeon and then I looked at her and I said, so you're telling me I have cancer? And they both nodded their head yes. Life just changed right there.
So I got a call from the recovery area nurse, and she told me he was out and that I needed to go to him. And so I'm like, oh, okay, great. You know, he's done. But she really made it sound like you can't just pick him up. Like you need to come in and go to the recovery room and be with him. So they led me back there, and Tim was laying in the bed, and he said, so the doctor's coming back.
And I said, I have cancer.
Heather, I went to him and I said, oh my God, how awful for you. I said, honey, you don't have cancer. I said, this is just the effects of the drugs they gave you. Like, what an awful feeling to have. I said, I'm so sorry you're feeling this. And he goes, no, I have cancer. And I still thought that he was just having delusions or something from the drugs. When the doctor came back and he said, yes, this is, we don't know what stage, probably stage 1, 2. And Tim had been trying to tell me, he says, while I was on the table, I woke up and I saw them grabbing something. I know I have cancer.
I know I have cancer. 5 words no one ever wants to hear, let alone have to say to someone they're falling in love with. At that point, Tim and Candy had only known each other for 9 months. Their love was new, blooming, just beginning to take shape into something that looked like it might become their new normal. And then, cancer. In Tim's eyes, everything stopped in that moment. His life didn't just change. It came to a standstill. And more than that, he believed he was losing Candy too. The woman he had fallen deeply in love with, slipping away before they even had a real chance to begin.
Your life is going in one direction, and something like this completely gives you a 180. I did not expect her to stay around. She said, absolutely not. I am here 100% for you.
So when you hear stage 1, 2, you think, okay, this is going to be, something we have to get through, but you have the surgery. Maybe you'll have a little treatment, but we're going to be just fine. This is just a wake-up call to, it's okay. It obviously has not been that. We're in 9 years now.
Sometimes people look at getting cancer as, this is going to sound weird, as a gift, because it allows them to really recheck and rebalance their life and really change things the way that they want to or need to be in their life.
Colon cancer is not a word you ever expect to be part of your love story. But here's what you need to know. When colon cancer is caught early, like it was in Tim's case, it is often very treatable and in many cases curable. In fact, according to the American Cancer Society, if colon cancer is diagnosed before it spreads beyond the colon wall, the 5-year survival rate is about 90%. That number drops significantly once the disease reaches nearby lymph nodes or distant organs. For stage 2 colon cancer, specifically, Survival rates generally range between 70 and 87%, depending on a few factors, like the depth of the tumor and whether it's considered high risk. Most people with stage 2 colon cancer undergo surgery to remove the tumor. If the margins are clear and the cancer hasn't spread, many don't require chemotherapy at all. And for those who do, chemo can help lower the risk or reoccurrence. The key to better outcomes is early detection, screenings, paying attention to your body, and pushing past the stigma of talking about colon health. It really can save lives. So yes, the diagnosis shook Tim's world, but the timing, as terrifying as it was, gave them a fighting chance. In the story you're about to hear, that chance became the foundation for something unexpected, because this did not end up being their story, not in the least. Their story became nothing less than a shit show.
I've had over 50 surgeries since May of 2016.
We're in 9 years now, and 5 different cancer diagnoses.
Which is unbelievable to think about.
Insane.
Unbelievable. Yeah. They left me with about 10% of my rectum. And so I was on an ileostomy bag while everything else was mending.
Very first chemotherapy Tim had, he woke me up in the middle of the night. I felt his head, he was burning up, and he had to have an appendectomy. So from the very onset, it was, oh my gosh, what is happening? That, 100-mile-per-hour race to the hospital,
And then after 3 months, they could reconnect me back to my normal system and everything. Down the road with further checkups, all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're seeing something here in the abdominal area, and we want to treat that. Then that triggered into, well, you do have these problems on your right side in your inguinal canal.
With each cancer diagnosis, I would have more awareness around, you can't take this journey on for Tim. This is his journey, not yours. So how am I going to be a support person to let him walk his own path so that he can have the healing that he is supposed to have?
There's a couple of really angered lymph nodes there. And so it always seems to be like, although as much as we want to try and catch a breath,
he's going to have a different journey, and throughout the journey, he's going to learn what he's supposed to learn. And I think that was the hardest thing for me.
During one of these times, it seems like we're always just like putting out these fires.
We often say, if it was cancer, wow, we could really handle this. We'd be doing pretty good. But it's all the side effects that Tim has had.
And so now, I do have 4 small spots on my lungs. My disease is referred to as metastasized. It's stage 4.
Wanting the love of my life so desperately to live without all of the problems and the challenges that the side effects of cancer treatment has given him.
Those spots are being treated right now. We're doing that with oral chemo. And, I'll go back in for more scans and follow-ups and work on next steps with them.
I think you can tell the last 9 years for Candy and Tim have been less than ideal, at least by any so-called perfect world standards. But really, whose world is perfect anyhow? Still, I want to give you just a little insight into what those years looked like, beyond the smiles, beyond the laughter, and beyond the survival. Tim has had 50 surgeries in the span of 9 years. That's an average of more than 5 surgeries a year. Or, to put it another way, he's been in an operating room about once every 2 months for almost a decade. Let that sink in. every time they'd try to start to catch their breath, there was another procedure, another hospital gown, and another recovery. It's exhausting just to imagine. Yet Tim and Candy are living it together every day.
The first surgery that Tim had was started as colorectal. The first surgery he had was a botched surgery.
I wish that it was isolated to one area. I wish that it had been all removed at once. That's just not the case. One of the surgeons had said, the other hospital that did the resectioning, is that we feel that this landed in your abdomen because when they were extracting the cancer, something must have hit in the sidewall. That's what kind of fueled the cancer in the abdominal area.
Immediately after the first surgery, we were already into, a completely different stage of cancer, because then it was into his abdomen.
As Tim and Candy both tell me this story, I sit there and I have this visceral, gut level reaction. And all I can think is, are you fucking kidding me? I go through every emotion in the book while they walk me through the fact that there is a possibility, a very strong possibility, that this was the result of a botched surgery. Now, Tim is quick to say it can't be proven with 100% certainty, but one of the trusted doctors on his team shared with good authority that it seems like this is the case. So, yeah, after I finish swearing under my breath and maybe out loud, and I walk through my own anger for them, we carry on with the conversation.
Tim had what was supposed to have been a temporary colostomy, which a colostomy is where a person, eliminates waste out of their side, pulled outside their skin like a little rosebud. It's supposed to look like a little rosebud, and that's how they eliminate waste. Tim's looked like a football, not at all like a little rosebud. We were having enormous issues keeping the bag that you attach to the body to collect the waste. We were having trouble keeping them adhered to his skin. Nothing fits a football shape. Everything is meant for a rosebud shape. We were putting bags on every 20 minutes, and it was horrendous. He ended up having third-degree burns from the bags not adhering properly, so the waste, going down his skin. I mean, it was remarkably horrifying. And one of the home health nurses said this was one of the top 3 ostomies, the worst ones I've ever seen. And I've been an ostomy nurse for 28 years.
And then we're like, we got to do something with all this material. It's serious stuff, but it's also comical. And that's why I wrote, my one-man show, The Shit Show.
We've come far enough into their journey that I think we've earned at least a laugh or two, don't you? And I promised you one, so I went digging into some of Tim's stand-up comedy from his act, The Shit Show. And here's a little snippet for you to hear before we continue on with the story. Because if anyone can make cancer, hospitals, and chaos hilarious, it's Tim.
It was my own shit show last night. So I'm thinking, do I really call it the shit show? I mean, is that appropriate? Is it okay to do it? And we came up with all kinds of other talks, potty talk with Tim, journey to the center of my colon, colon cancer, a serious pain in the ass, colon cancer, up yours! Stay calm and poop strong. But where's my rectal people again? No one's in the... Oh, one lady in the back of the room. I love it. Yeah. The rectal people are usually in the back. Right over here. Yeah. Great. So I was thinking about it. Wow, if you put... he had stage 4. I had stage 2. If you put Bill and I together, we're the perfect ass now, right? All right, where's my survivors? Survivors, get your hands up. Oh, both hands up. There we go. Look at that. What a beautiful room this is, right? What a beautiful room. So every time I say rectum, I want you guys to say damn near killed him, okay? All right, so here we go. Rectum. Damn near killed him. Beautiful, because that's essentially what happened. My rectum damn near... Yes, exactly. Good job. what if I had a different type of cancer? Like, what would we have called the show? Like, what if I had testicular cancer? Would it be 2 by 2 or maybe it'd be 1 by 1? I used to be that poop at home kind of guy. Who's the poop at home kind of person? Right? Yeah, right? Yeah, because we're comfortable, right? Who has worn Depends? Where's my rectal people again? Who's worn Depends? We're gonna get a little personal now. Oh, you bunch of liars. No one wears those. He thinks I look sexy in them. Because Depends have now. Why are you shaking your head over there? You think I'm going to show you right now?
Which is my journey about going through cancer. You know, I've done it at comedy clubs, but I've also done it at cancer conferences and galas. The biggest one I just did was last year. It was last year in Washington, D.C. It was in front of 1,000 people. I mean, this was a room that was filled with public figures. There was serious brass in this room, a ton of senators and congressmen. But it's good because it's therapeutic for me when I get to do my show. Or when I get to talk about it, it's very therapeutic for me because I know that if I can help just one person, that's great. But it's also it's like therapy for me to be able to talk about it, to others.
The fact that we're on and, still in this 9 years later it truly is a miracle. That is the miracle of all of this. And there's so much more to living, even when you're going through this. This is our life. So how are we going to continue living instead of saying, I hear so many people say, still, this loved one of mine is dying of cancer. No, we're never dying. We're never actively dying. That's not the way we see it.
Yeah.
We're actively living. And we happen to be living with this little person who's in our home who refuses to leave, but we're going to love them anyway. We're going to do as best we can. And it happens to be called cancer. We're like, okay, you can go anytime now. And so now that we're like, all right, you're hanging on, how do we just continue to have, live our lives with this little roommate that we wish had left and is not leaving? We're just going to adjust life. And, I think that's the thing. We constantly learn how to adjust. What do we all do when you're in times of adjusting to new circumstances? It's not like a quick turnaround. Oh, this is fine, right? It's never like, oh, we're okay with that. Let's adjust right now on a dime. None of us do that. None. We're human.
Yeah.
For me, I can only speak for me. Tim actually seems to turn around quicker than I do, which is amazing. I'm like, oh, this is happening actively to both of us, but to you, I don't know. I'm inspired, amazed by him every single day, because for me, I will be angry. I can stew in it for a few days to a few weeks, depending on how bad the news is and where I'm at in my own life. And then I come around. I don't stay stuck in it for long, but 3 weeks feels like a really long time when I have been stuck there, like it's never going to end. But I can't be as affectionate and loving and be me as a caregiver to Tim when I'm there. So coming around to it is always better. Leaning into faith and spirit is definitely the way to go. Goes without saying, but
Candy and I are working on a little project that we're calling Love Wins, just because, with us, we're 9 years into this cancer journey. We had only been dating 9 months when I was diagnosed, and I did not expect her to stay around, once I got diagnosed. And she said, absolutely not. I am here 100% for you. She has done that right from day one, and continues to do so. And she is right by my side as my caregiver. And I can't stress enough the importance of caregiving. I think they are the unforgotten souls in these types of journeys, whether it's cancer or any other type of ailment where someone is in need of a caregiver all the time. I just think that those caregivers, unfortunately, they don't receive the spotlight that they should receive because they're the ones who are doing all the lifting. I've got to do the work too because I'm in it and I don't have a choice, but the caregiver is the one to understand it and really help catapult things forward for you. And that's exactly what Candy does. She loves so fiercely that she doesn't let anything get in the way of us, I guess I would say.
Tim is 100% correct when he says the caretaker is the one who catapults everything forward, that they are the unforgotten souls of these journeys. In my opinion, it's often because of the caretaker that the patient is able to thrive. I wanted to know how Candy felt about stepping into that role, not just as Tim's wife, but as his caretaker, his advocate, his emotional anchor through it all. She had already shared some incredibly raw and honest stories with me, like the time she had to learn in graphic detail how to dress Tim's wounds. She told me it was way more than she ever thought she could handle, but she did it anyway. She told me about the 18 torturous hours she spent in the waiting room while Tim was in surgery, how time both stood still and raced past her. And then there was the moment she took a Sharpie and wrote "thank you" on Tim's ass so he could share one last laugh with his radiation team on the final day of treatment. Because when you're a comedian, even in the chaos, you still find a way to keep everyone in check. In Candy, she was there for it all. This is how she sees her role, both as Tim's wife and his caretaker.
Oftentimes I don't play them effectively. I don't.
That's honest.
I feel like the things I've been told that caregivers do, like through the healthcare system, the things that they just expect you're going to do at home is jaw-dropping. I couldn't believe it, Heather, the first time they told me that I needed to learn how to change his wounds. Now, I'm talking gaping wounds. That took away my ability to just be a wife and a friend and a lover. It's like, you're going to be his nurse. I never envisioned that part of caregiving. And since then, since that one moment, it's unbelievable how I've had to just pony up and say, okay, here I am. I'm going to do whatever it's got to be. And I'll say to Tim all the time, like sometimes through just tears, I'm so sorry. I wish I could just be your wife. I wish I could just be your soulmate, your love. But cancer takes a lot of, and caregiving, different illnesses, takes a lot of how you interact as husband and wife. How are you going to deal with all of the discouragement and all of the care it takes to get someone just to the point of being in clean dressing, clean clothes? Still baffles me. I don't know that I'll ever stop being amazed at how much caregivers have to do just for basic needs. Mm-hmm. And then can you deal with the emotional ones? I so wish I could go back to being just the wife that gets to snuggle and love and just say, I'm so sorry you're going through this. The advocating, oh my goodness. I've had to stay grounded at times, of course. No one is listening to us. No one is giving us the care that Tim needs. And so I just let it loose. I have learned how to look at Tim and I'll say, you see how loving I'm being to you right now? You know, as he's lying in a hospital bed, and he's like, yes, honey, thank you. And I'm like, great. And I'll rub his feet, and I'll say, so when you hear me, when I go to the nurse's station, just know that's not me. I'm just doing what I have to do. And that is the one thing that's been really shocking to me, is the amount that I have had to yell, demand, literally scream at healthcare professionals. And I hate this because there's so many of them I love, so many nurses I love, so many who have been there for us. It only takes one bad seed to not be listening or doing what Tim needed. You know, I've just had to cultivate the feeling of being like, okay, I have to be okay that I have to go to that extent. I'm a spiritual person. I want to be peaceful. I certainly want to be kind. I want to be supportive of everything that these nurses go through and doctors on a day-to-day basis. But at the end of the day, I'm Tim's wife, and he's the love of my life, and I'm going to advocate for him. You know, to be able to come back and hold his hand and then be able to address his needs, his physical needs, his emotions. The two don't really go well together. So I don't always do a good job.
I don't know about any of you listening, but if I were sick in the hospital or just needed someone in my corner, I'd want Candy on my side. And yes, it sounds incredibly hard to separate the roles of wife and caregiver, but when you love someone as fiercely as Candy loves Tim, and I can attest to that kind of love from my own experience, you do what you have to make it right for the person you love. I've heard from so many people that one of the biggest challenges for couples who take on the caregiver role is remembering how to fall back into their role as partners, how to reconnect, how to rediscover intimacy, not just physical, but emotional, in the middle of all the medical chaos. So I asked each of them about that. How do you hold on to your connection as husband and wife in the midst of everything else? Let me tell you, I wasn't at all surprised by their answers, but I was moved because I believe what they shared is something that plays a huge role in keeping a relationship strong, no matter what you're walking through.
Yes, we do. We do almost daily. I think it's a rare day when we don't make the time. We still dance in the kitchen almost weekly, even if that means Tim is sitting and I'm holding his hands and swaying in front of him. You know, Tim has his lymphedema pump that he has to do twice a day for an hour. So oftentimes I will just go lay next to him. Like, he's there. He can't get up and go anywhere. So I can lay with him. It is a lot different, but we have found ways to stay connected, heart to heart. We do have intimacy. Intimacy has changed dramatically. Luckily, I feel such a soul connection to Tim that it's very rewarding to have our intimate relationship, and that's something that cancer will never take from us.
And, you know, just those little things in life that mean so much to make sure that you really take advantage of things like that. And still look at every day as a great day.
As we wrap up our conversation, I'm honestly just in awe because through all of the mess, the surgeries, the setbacks, and the unknowns, Tim and Candy keep coming back to the same place. The possibility of togetherness, of tomorrow, of life, and most of all, of love. And that, for me, is where I landed in telling their story. Yes, it mattered to weave in the hard parts, the pain, the medical realities, the truth that people need to hear and understand, because awareness matters, education matters. But more than that, in my eyes, People need to hear that real love stories still exist, not that they're just fairy tales or movie scripts. And I just had the honor of sharing one of the best I've ever heard. And of course, it wouldn't be a proper episode without my favorite question. After all of this, what keeps you both smiling today?
I still have him today, and we're so pissed at cancer that we're like, oh, this is what you want us to do, is be really miserable and not enjoy life. Well, guess what? We both have had that mindset from the beginning. It didn't always just be like, oh, okay, you have cancer. Well, fuck that. We're just going to go do whatever. It's not like that. It's not glib or light. Seriously focusing on that we have each other today and we have life to live today. And how do we want to do that? What thoughts do we want to have? How do we want to live? What people do we want to have around us? What experiences do we want to have in our life? We've been able to just continually reach for our dreams and our goals and achieve them. It's really been awesome, and so many incredible ways to see Tim diagnosed, with a late stage of cancer, and say, well, okay, yeah, that happened. That was today, and tomorrow, I'm achieving my dream of being in a major motion picture and on the Warner Brothers lot. Okay. Instead of hearing that late stage diagnosis and saying, okay, let's go pick out the plot.
Life itself, it makes you smile, right?
Yeah.
We're all very lucky to be here. You count every day as a blessing. We're never guaranteed a tomorrow, and so I try and really recognize that and be as upbeat as possible. When I find myself getting negative and stuff like that, I really try hard to force myself, not to force myself, but to tell myself, hey, why are you being so negative about this? It's just the way that it is, and if there's a workaround, use the workaround, and if not, then create it. And if it's something that's not making you happy, then stop doing it. It's your choice, and then just move on. It's pretty much most things can make me smile. And I think a lot of that, again, is because I try and look at things through a very positive attitude, even with a cancer diagnosis.
It makes perfect sense that this is what keeps Tim and Candy smiling today. Living each day fully, knowing tomorrow is never promised, loving fiercely, laughing often, finding joy in the mess, in the mundane, in the miracle of still being here. There's a kind of freedom in this way of living, not waiting for perfect, just showing up with humor, with heart, and with each other. I think we should all take a lesson from that and live this way a little bit more. And of course, as we close our conversation, I ask them one more question. If you could leave just one more piece of advice with the listeners, what would it be?
If you're unsure if you can really be there for a person, don't beat yourself up over it. Either gather your little posse together and say, I'm going to need just as much help, and figure out who you can have there that you can really be vulnerable with. Because if I was told how hard this was going to be in the beginning, I still would have done it. But I'm really glad I didn't know how hard.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would have questioned my ability to be there for Tim.
Love wins. Love always wins. It's so simple, those two little words, but the power of those two little words, when you really focus on it, when you really think about it, and what it means to you.
The other thing is treat yourself with great care, as great care as you can, even in small moments, you're going to end up with hours spent taking care of your loved one and a lot less on yourself. If you can just take those small moments and expand them, really just tap in and say, okay, Spirit, how are you doing through all of this? I'm really not okay watching the love of my life suffer. Really not okay with this diagnosis that's refusing to go away. And this is what we're living with now. This is the truth of our lives. This is how we're living every day. I'm not okay with that. And it's a different way of being when I really stop and ask myself how I'm doing. And then I say, okay, so what are we going to do about the not okayness? There's nothing you can do, but you can be a little more compassionate with yourself, a little more easy when you are having a hard time and, screaming at the person in front of you because they are going so slow on the road. And you're like, come on, the road rage, whatever it may be that sneaks up on small things. You're like, oh, okay.
Life's a journey, not a destination. So I love that saying, life's a journey, not a destination.
Life's a journey, not a destination. It's one of Tim's favorite sayings from one of his favorite songs, Amazing by Aerosmith. And honestly, it couldn't be more fitting for their love story. Two incredible people navigating life's wildest turns, with love leading the way every single time. Never certain what tomorrow will bring, but always choosing to laugh through it, because that's the only way they know how. It has been an honor to share their story with you. My heart is overwhelmed and my eyes are overflowing. And my belief in love, messy, real, resilient love, is stronger than ever.
There's always a reason to always choose joy. There's something deeper that the world can't destroy. Smile when you think you can't. Smile, get up and dance. Smile, there's a bigger plan. The storm only lasts for a while. So smile.
Thank you for tuning in to Change Happen, Then What? I hope today's story offered you insight, connection, or maybe a moment of peace. Please consider following the show wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Want to go a step further in supporting this work? Share the episode with someone who needs it. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. It helps more than you'll ever know. Or head over to the Support Us tab in the show notes to explore how you can help keep these stories coming one episode at a time. Our theme music is Smile by Sidewalk Prophets from their album Things That Got Us Here, and you can find out more about them at sidewalkprophets.com. Want to dive deeper into today's conversation? Check out the show notes or visit changehappenedpodcast.com for more about our guests and additional resources. Have your own Then What moment you'd like to share? I'd love to hear it. Just email me anytime at changepodcast@yahoo.com. Change Happen Then What is written, edited, and produced by me, Heather Holt, at Holt Hill Studios, with the enthusiastic support of my two sidekicks, Waylon and Dalton. Until next time, take care of your heart and keep smiling.